Hello friends, my name is Alex Carter, and you're watching Midnight Horror Files. I hope wherever you are, you're safe, calm, and far away from the kind of places I'm about to talk about tonight. On this channel, we explore chilling stories, some based on real eyewitness accounts, some drawn from personal experiences, and some that exist in that dangerous space between truth and imagination. These are stories that don't just scare you for a moment, they stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Tonight's story takes us deep into the heart of New Orleans, Louisiana, a city known for its jazz, its history, and the secrets buried beneath its charm. Among its old neighborhoods, where narrow streets twist like forgotten memories, stands a house that locals refuse to name casually. They simply call it the Haunted House. The house is a massive, decaying colonial-era structure, built more than a century ago. Time has not been kind to it. The paint has peeled away like dead skin. The wooden balconies sag under their own weight, and the iron gates are rusted shut, as if trying to keep something trapped inside. For decades, no one has lived there. No one has tried to renovate it, and no one who truly knows its story wants anything to do with it. Residents living nearby whisper that the house never truly sleeps. They claim that during the dead hours of the night, faint lights appear behind broken windows, lights that disappear the moment someone looks too closely. Some swear they've heard slow footsteps echoing through the empty halls, even though the house is supposed to be abandoned. Others tell of low whispers carried on the humid night air, voices that seem to call out names no one recognizes. But the most terrifying legend is about a woman in white. Multiple witnesses spanning different generations have reported seeing her standing at an upstairs window. She is always silent. Her face is blurred as if covered by mist, and her presence sends a sudden wave of cold through the air. The elders of the neighborhood say she was once the mistress of the house, a woman whose story ended in tragedy and rage. What exactly happened to her is unclear, but whatever it was, the house never let her go. Parents warned their children to stay away. Taxi drivers refused to stop near the property after sunset. Even during festivals, when the city is alive with music and laughter, that house remains untouched, dark, still, and watching. And yet, as history has shown time and again, the more a place is forbidden, the more it calls to those who believe fear is just another myth. And that is exactly where our story truly begins. While most people in New Orleans avoided the old haunted house at all costs, there were a few who saw it not as a warning, but as a challenge. Michael Reed was the kind of person who never accepted local legends at face value. He believed fear thrived on imagination, not facts. His closest friends, Daniel Brooks, Jason Miller, and Kevin Turner, were cut from a similar cloth. They were college friends, bonded by late-night debates, urban exploration videos, and a shared curiosity for the unknown. Together, they had explored abandoned hospitals, empty warehouses, and forgotten cemeteries, yet none of those places carried the reputation that surrounded this house. One humid evening, during a casual conversation over coffee, the topic came up again. "What if we actually go inside?" Daniel said, half joking, but not entirely. The table fell silent. Everyone knew what he meant. The house, the one people crossed the street to avoid, the one even the police rarely mentioned. Michael leaned back, a slow smile forming on his face. "If there's nothing there," he said, "we prove the stories are fake. And if there is something, then we finally know." By midnight, the decision was made. They chose a night with no moon, when the city felt quieter than usual. The streets near the house were nearly empty, streetlights flickering as if unsure whether to stay awake. Armed with flashlights, a handheld camera, and a backpack filled with water and snacks, the four friends stood in front of the iron gate just after 1 a.m. Up close, the house looked even more unsettling. The gate was cold to the touch, damp with rust and moisture. When Michael pushed it open, it screamed, a long metallic screech that echoed down the street, slicing through the silence. All four froze, hearts racing, waiting for lights to turn on in nearby houses. Nothing happened. The neighborhood stayed asleep. Inside the yard, the air felt different, heavier, colder. The smell of wet wood and decay clung to their lungs. The front door stood slightly open, as if the house itself had been expecting them. Daniel joked nervously about horror movies, but his laughter died quickly when the door creaked wider on its own. The moment they stepped inside, the temperature dropped. Their flashlights revealed a vast shadow-filled interior. Torn wallpaper hung like shedding skin. Broken furniture lay scattered across the floor. Every footstep stirred thick dust, and the sound echoed unnaturally as if the house were repeating their movements. "Do you feel like someone's watching us?" Daniel whispered. No one answered, but everyone felt it. Somewhere deep inside the house, a faint sound echoed. Not quite a voice, not quite a movement, just enough to remind them that stepping inside was a decision they could no longer undo. And the night had only just Michael, begun. Daniel, Jason, and Kevin moved into the house, the more it felt like they were no longer alone. The silence inside wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, pressing down on their ears until every breath sounded too loud. Their flashlights cut through the darkness in narrow beams, revealing dust swirling in the air like tiny spirits disturbed from sleep. They stepped into what appeared to be the main hall. The room was massive, with a high ceiling that vanished into shadows. Along the walls hung old portraits in cracked wooden frames, men in formal suits, women in long dresses, their expressions frozen in time. Yet something about their eyes felt wrong. No matter where the group stood, those eyes seemed to follow them. Jason laughed nervously and waved his hand in front of one painting. "Okay, that's creepy," he muttered. At the center of the hall stood a long wooden table coated in thick dust. Kevin dragged his finger across the surface and froze. Beneath the dust were fresh handprints. "Someone's been here," he whispered. Before anyone could respond, a loud scrape echoed across the hall. An old chair near the wall began to move slowly, deliberately, without anyone touching it. The sound of wood scraping against stone sent a shock through their bodies. Daniel stepped back, his flashlight shaking. This isn't funny anymore. Suddenly, a dim yellow light flickered above them. An ancient light bulb hanging from a frayed wire glowed weakly, despite the house having no electricity. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting into unnatural shapes. For a brief moment, the faces in the portraits appeared to shift. Lips twitched, eyes blinked. Then came the whispers. At first, they were barely audible, soft murmurs rising from the staircase at the far end of the hall. The words made no sense, overlapping in a language that felt old and broken. With every second, the whispers grew louder, closer, as if something was slowly descending toward them. Against their better judgment, they climbed the stairs. Each step groaned under their weight, echoing through the house like a warning. The air grew colder the higher they went, biting at their skin. Curtains in the upstairs hallway began to move violently, even though every window was sealed shut. Then, Jason stopped. On one of the curtains, a bloody handprint appeared, slowly forming finger by finger, dark and wet, as if pressed from the other side. The temperature dropped instantly, their breath turning visible in the air. A low, inhuman laugh echoed from the corner of the hallway. A shadow detached itself from the wall and moved, crawling unnaturally without a clear shape. And then, near the window at the end of the corridor, they saw her. A woman dressed in white. Her hair floated as if underwater. Her face was blurred, impossible to focus on. When she turned toward them, the hallway seemed to freeze in place. The lights flickered once, and she vanished. Michael swallowed hard. This isn't just a house, it's alive. And whatever lived inside it had finally noticed them. By the time the first faint hint of dawn tried to creep through the cracked windows, the house had completely changed. What once felt abandoned now felt awake, angry, breathing, and aware of every move Michael, Daniel, Jason, and Kevin made. The walls groaned softly, as if the house itself were stretching after a long sleep. Then came the sound. A A deep, violent bang thundered from the ceiling above them. Dust rained down as if something heavy had been dragged across the attic floor. The portraits lining the walls began to shake, frames rattled. One by one, the painted eyes turned toward the four friends. They ran. Gripping each other's arms, they stumbled down the staircase, nearly falling as the steps twisted under their feet. When they reached the main hall, they stopped in horror. The front door, their only exit, was closed. Before anyone could touch it, an old lantern lying on the floor suddenly stood upright on its own. With a sharp metallic click, it ignited. Its pale light spilled across the hall, and shadows exploded onto the walls, human-shaped, moving independently, stretching and bending in impossible ways. The temperature dropped so suddenly that frost formed on the floorboards. From within the shadows, a familiar figure emerged. The woman in white stood before them, clearer now than ever before. Her expression was no longer empty, it was filled with grief and rage intertwined. Her voice when she spoke was calm but powerful, echoing through the house without effort. "This is my home," she said. "You were never invited." The air vibrated with her words. The lantern flickered wildly, and the shadows recoiled as if obeying her command. She raised her hand, and the entire house fell silent. "Leave," she whispered, "and never return." In an instant, she dissolved into mist. The front door burst open with a deafening crash. Morning light flooded the hall, breaking the spell like shattered glass. Birds chirped outside, painfully normal compared to the nightmare they had just survived. They didn't hesitate. The four friends ran out into the yard, gasping for breath, their bodies shaking uncontrollably. None of them spoke until they were far down the street, the haunted house shrinking behind them, but still watching. As the sun fully rose, the house looked ordinary again, silent, empty. But they knew better. That night changed them. Michael stopped chasing the unknown. Daniel couldn't sleep without the lights on. Jason refused to talk about what he saw. Kevin, once fearless, avoided abandoned places entirely. Some doors, they learned, are not meant to be opened. Even today, locals in New Orleans claim that the house still glows faintly at night, that whispers float through broken windows, that a woman in white stands silently upstairs, guarding what was once hers. The house remains, waiting, because not everyone listens to warnings, and not everyone escapes.